everyone wants to work in a safe place. So we have to have the conversations and be willing to have the conversations and say, we need to take the intentional steps to make a change and to change our culture from the top all the way down. And when people don't align with those values, we have to be willing to say and have the courage to say, you're no longer welcomed here.
Hey everyone, it's Amy Lynn Durham, and you're listening to Create Magic at Work. Create Magic at Work is on a mission to equip senior leaders with tools they need to be a true quantum leader and actually understand what that means. Improve employee engagement, retain top talent, and transform your workplace culture to have less drama and stress. So let's start making magic. Hey everyone, welcome to Create Magic at Work. A few months ago, I did a poll on LinkedIn and I asked all of you, what topics do you want to hear discussed? And interestingly enough, the overwhelming response was, Amy, please do an episode on workplace bullying. And I was like, wow, yes, let's do that. We've never talked about that on the Create Magic at Work podcast, in saying, hey, let's talk about workplace bullying. So I have invited Andrea Morehead to be a cherished guest today to share her story and to share her insights on workplace bullying and how hopefully we can eradicate it from our lives and bring it into our conscious awareness so we can do that. So Andrea, welcome to Create Magic at Work.
Thank you so much, Amy. I am honored to be here to share my experience with everyone, and I hope it helps them and hopefully will heal those who have gone through what I've been through as well.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for putting that intention out. I'd love to just echo that. Like, our intention today is to have a healing episode for everyone listening who may have felt like they've experienced workplace abuse or workplace bullying. Would you mind sharing with all of us a little bit about you, what led you to be a voice for this?
Absolutely. When I think about the journey to this moment, I can distinctly remember that it all began back in 2005 when there was kind of a changing of the guard at my TV station, a changing of the guard in terms of management, and a changing of the guard in terms of the anchor rotation and who was going to be basically who's on first base, who's on second base. And at that moment in time when I was fully anticipating that I would be promoted to the 6 p.m. newscast because I worked hard for it and I earned it. In that moment, the new management staff decided to change the game, if you will. They moved the goalpost. And while it was hurtful and demeaning, I did what most people do. You take the lumps, you accept someone's decision, you love what you do, you move on, and you work. And that is part of my ethos. It's who I am as a person, the character. And you accept the rules, if you will, and you keep it moving. You pivot. And I was good at what I did. I loved what I did. And over the course of time, as you begin to mature in life as well as in work, when I began at that TV station, I was 29 years old. And when I walked away, I was 50. So you can only imagine being a 29-year-old, you're kind of bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, you're kind of wet behind the ear. You're just excited to be back in your hometown working and representing your high school and your college and knowing that I got a chance to come back home. And it was such an honor for me to work in my hometown of Indianapolis, Indiana. And when it came time to be promoted, the rug was literally pulled from underneath my feet. And yet, as I mentioned, I continued to work diligently. I didn't put up a fuss. I just did my job because that's who I am. And in the course of maturing, growing older and wiser, and really kind of coming into my own as a woman, as a human being, and understanding the nuances of discrimination, the nuances of racism, the nuances of retaliation in the workplace. It was kind of like a slow burn, if you will. So that was the very beginning. And over the years, there were other instances where it was hurtful, it was painful, but I would just share it with my husband, with my in-laws, my family, my mom, my dad, my sister, and very, very close friends who were very aware of what I was up against. And yet I remained diligent and I did my job. And so when the roadblocks began to get larger and higher, I began to really understand that what was happening was intentional. There was a reason why they did what they did, and I understood what it was. And that revelation was the most painful thing ever in my life, because my parents have always taught my sister and I that you can be whatever you want to in life. You work hard, you're diligent, you become a student of your craft, and you will be rewarded. And for the first time in my life as an adult, I realized that while that's great and we want to believe that, not everyone harnesses that ideal. And not everyone brings that to the workplace. And that realization was hurtful because for the first time in my life, I realized that as a woman and as a Black woman, that the treatment that I received was beneath the dignity of a human being. And I can tell you from the aggregate of the experiences led me to 2018 when I was diagnosed with breast cancer in April of 2018. And during that year, it really gave me a chance to sit down, if you will. I didn't have a choice, especially during chemotherapy treatments, but to sit and really think about my life, my job, my role as a mother and as a wife. And I realized that I was on this perpetual wheel, this hamster wheel, and I was just going and going and going, and I couldn't get off. I was exhausted emotionally. And to this day, I believe that my breast cancer was caused by the stress of what I was going through, which was workplace bullying. And that was the beginning in 2018 of just really understanding and sitting in my truth and actually speaking it, not just to my family, but out loud to a therapist who helped me to understand that I was not crazy, that what I had been experiencing, the aggregate of all of these experiences were indeed workplace abuse. I had never heard of the term before. And when my therapist said that to me, after she began to literally cry with me, and she said, "You should be dead right now." And when I got that validation, the affirmation, and then the understanding, followed by the solutions of how I could reclaim my life, that's when I said, it's time for me to choose myself. It's time for me to choose myself because I had allowed this situation to affect my home life. There are times when I look at pictures of myself and of my son, and I ask my husband, I know I was there because I took the pictures in my phone, but I don't remember it. And workplace bullying, toxicity in the workplace, mobbing in the workplace, literally robs you of your soul. And I was at a point of literal exhaustion, trying to appeal to the powers that be to do something about it, to hold my coworkers accountable, and to even hold themselves accountable. And that is why I have been so, I guess you would say, as the kids would say, going hard for this subject because it was so damaging. And it has taken, and it probably will take for the rest of my life to really just sit in the truth of what happened. And again, when I understood what it was, I had a label for it. It made sense. It was a light bulb moment. And that's when it took me about another year and a half before I realized if I don't walk away, because the environment is not going to change. If I don't walk away, I will die. I was that woman who was at the edge of a mountain, and the pain was so hurtful. It was so substantial. It continued to increase on a daily basis. The manipulation and the gaslighting, the intimidation, the physical abuse, being accosted by my news director, all of these things and so much more, the aggregate of those circumstances led me to believe that the only way out was to just be done, to leave this world, this earth, because I had worked so hard for this. I had worked so hard, and to be at a place where my humanity was not seen, was not respected, to not dignify my humanity was the last straw for me. And so when I understood what was going on was a real thing, that I was not alone, that's when I began my journey of learning what exactly is workplace abuse. Am I the only one? Oh no. What? There are 90 million people in America who are dealing with this? And that's when I said something has to be done, because we have the solution. This is about, how do we show up in the world? How do we show up in the workplace? How do we treat each other with dignity and respect? It doesn't mean that I may not always agree with maybe the rule or decision, but how can we have uncomfortable conversations with the goal of being more connected to one another, both emotionally and spiritually, and to sit in the truth? And as a journalist, I know that a lot of people are going, well, our journal is really about the truth. I'm kind of old school. I got into the business to, inspire people and to educate, as well as to hold the powers that be accountable, whether it's government, anything, anything and anyone that is going against the values that we uphold and we say are really important to us. We can't have what I call selective truth and justice when it benefits us. It has to be intentional every single day for every single person. And so that began my journey. And so ever since 2020, when I walked out on June 5th, and I literally dropped the mic at 6:37 p.m., that's when I said I want to dedicate the rest of my life to helping people, to let them know that they're not alone, because I was isolated. I had no idea this was a real issue. And I just wanted people to know that I see you and I hear you. And if no one believes your story, I believe it. I believe it because it's happened to me. And so many times, Amy, in this situation, people don't feel valued because they don't feel seen and heard. And they believe if they speak their truth of their experiences, that no one will believe them, that they will be marginalized, that they will be labeled as a difficult person. And I want you to know that you are the bravest and most honorable person to stand up to truth, to stand up to justice, and to call for a better environment for all of us in the workplace. And I believe that abuse is abuse. I know a lot of times we talk about sexual abuse and domestic violence. All of it is abuse. And if you think about domestic abuse, if you think about sexual assault, it's all rooted in psychological abuse. The sexual assault, the domestic violence, they are manifestations of the psychological abuse that's done, that is done to you, that allows you to accept the sexual assault, to give in, to accept the domestic violence, to accept the physical assault. It all starts with our minds. And our minds, our body, and our spirit, it's all connected. And I just said, I will dedicate my life to helping people and to not just talk about the stories, but Amy, to find a solution, because we do have the solution. The solution is within us. The solution is, how do we eradicate the toxicity and the bullying in the workplace? And ever since I've been working with the advocacy group, the National Advocacy Group, End Workplace Abuse, we have been hell-bent on making sure that we are front and center in speaking truth to power, using our collective stories to talk about this, raising and ringing the alarm so that we can provide safer environment at work. We all deserve that. And so I'm just grateful and thankful that I was able to find EWA. I'm grateful that I am the co-director of our Indiana chapter, and all of us collectively in Indiana and around the country with different state chapters. We are working to hopefully get new laws in place because, as you know, the current discrimination laws do not adequately protect us. Whether you're a woman, African American, person of color, LGBTQ+, if you cannot prove intent, if you can't prove intent, you literally don't have a case. And it's difficult. And companies know this, which is why the toxicity and the bullying and the mobbing and the discrimination continues. And companies know, and their legal teams know there's nothing that very little we can do as employees to fight them and to hold them accountable. And I'm just that woman. I'm that chick who's like, wait a minute, this happened to me for a reason, because I believe that I was meant. I really believe that, my spiritual journey, my faith, my belief in God led me to this moment because I believe that he knew that I would take up the mantle, take up this baton, and carry us to the next, what I call civil rights 2.0. We need to improve our laws so that it's not just diverse and equity and inclusive for certain people, but it's for everyone. This is a human pandemic. It's not just in America, it's around the world. And we have to be honest and say, we see you and we're going to call you out and we're going to create legislation that protects every single person. And I've had a great time, if you will, just being in this space. When people ask me all the time, Amy, like, what's the best story you've ever covered in your career? And I could point to, I've interviewed presidents, I've interviewed head of states, I've traveled the world, but I've never really been able to tell people specifically what the best story is because I believe that everyone's story is important. And yet, finally, in my 35 plus year career, my story is the most important story of my life, of my career. And I will forever talk about it. I will forever sound the alarm, and I will forever work in this space of helping to change laws.
Thank you for sharing your story with us and with the Create Magic at Work community. So many questions I have for you that came up while you were sharing your experience. I mean, I really want to go back for all of us listening. Do you have some, I guess I would say, examples of workplace abuse or of workplace bullying that we can recognize? Because I feel like often, I don't know, sometimes I think if we're sitting in those moments, it's hard for us to see. So maybe if you could share with all of us, what are some examples of workplace abuse? What are some examples of workplace bullying? What does psychological safety in the workplace truly mean?
Yeah, it's a lot of people are very confused about, well, what does this mean? We're really, really quick, and it's easy for us to say, well, we recognize bullying from, kindergarten or kids in school, middle school, or even high school. We recognize that. But what people fail to realize is bullying is a human condition. And where there is toxicity and bullying and mobbing and discrimination, there goes humanity out the door, if you will. And so a lot of people are going, well, what does that mean? So that time the boss was screaming and yelling at me and throwing papers across the table and cursing at me, no, he was just having a bad day. Or he woke up on the wrong side of the bed. Or that's just who he is. We have conditioned ourselves to just accept poor behavior in the name of business. This is just the way this is. It's just the way we've been doing business. And I say, no, it's wrong. So if you're asking yourself, what does bullying look like? Let's start with the basis and the foundation. You will become the target of bullying from your bosses, your managers, your supervisors, and your coworkers, other coworkers, if they are intimidated by you, if they are jealous of you, if they are projecting their own inadequacies about themselves upon you. You are the person who's confident, respectful, ethical, and you have integrity. And where those characteristics exist, the people who are the bullies, they don't understand and don't know how to interact and communicate with you because you really are the epitome of who they want to be, but they simply haven't done their work to address their own traumas in their lives. So they then come to work with their same traumas that they have not done the work to eradicate, to deal with. They haven't gone to therapy. They have not changed their perspectives. So you will have the yelling and the cursing. You will experience manipulation. You will experience gaslighting. You will experience maybe bosses preventing you from even doing your job adequately by withholding information, withholding resources that you need, and then gaslighting you and saying, well, because you didn't do X, Y, and Z, but yet they fail to realize and accept that they set you up to fail. That is workplace bullying. In my specific situation, resources were denied, adequate ability to access my photographers and producers denied, the inability to wear my natural hair on TV after my cancer, not just diagnosis, but the treatments for, 2 years. I had chemotherapy, the surgery, the radiation, followed by another almost 2 years of immunotherapy treatments. When my hair began to grow back, I was called into the office and reprimanded and told that I should have asked to wear my natural hair on air. The news director on 2 separate occasions, because he was upset that I told the general manager that he lied to me about a franchise that I had been working on for a year. And the news director failed to allow me to do it and would continue to push my start date back, but allowed another person who does not look like me, but in a similar situation professionally, to do whatever they wanted to willy-nilly and to give them excuses and preferential treatment. That is workplace bullying. When the news director poked me on my shoulder in 2 separate occasions because I had told the general manager about his lying and manipulating, and I had receipts via email and showed the general manager, he was upset with me. And so his personal conversation that was going to take place in his office, instead of emailing me or calling me on the phone or coming in front of my desk and saying, Andrea, can you come into my office and let's talk about this in a respectful, dignified manner? He proceeded to poke me on my shoulder as if I was a child. As if I was a child. I will never, ever forget that. And when you bring those moments to the attention of management who are in the position to hold people accountable and they fail to do it, to me, to everyone, to any reasonable person, you are complicit in allowing the bullying and the toxicity to continue. You have literally given those people the green light to keep doing what you're doing, because guess what? You have the title of news director, you have the title of the general manager, you have the title of the vice president, and they set the tone for the culture. And if people who are under them understand and are never held accountable, and they also use their flying monkeys, if you will, to continue to harass and to enact the unconscionable behavior, then guess what? It's almost kind of like being in a casino. The house always wins. You might win a couple of hands here and there, but at the end of the night, the house always wins. Dealer always wins. And you have to get to a place where you say, you know what, is it really worth it? Are these people going to be here for the long term? And if the environment doesn't change, that's when I tell people it's time for you to change your environment. It's time for you to change your environment. So those are just some of the many examples that I have shared in my conversations on several podcasts. And unfortunately, there's so many more examples. My coworkers were betting on whether or not I was coming to work after my chemotherapy treatments. And it was said in the newsroom and they were laughing about it. I had an email that I sent to the news director and the assistant news director and 3 other producers. And it was sent to them about a story idea. And they began to talk about me disparagingly. And unfortunately, he erroneously, mistakenly sent me the email. I got it. And I knew exactly that what I thought was happening, how I knew that they felt, or what I felt, that how they felt about me was true. And when you send it to your general manager and say, listen, this is going on, you see it in an email. Again, one of many examples, and you do absolutely nothing. That's when you know you are in a place that will not protect you psychologically. That is psychological abuse. That is workplace bullying. That is workplace abuse.
All right, it's time for a fun, playful, quick break. And it's time for you to discover your spiritual intelligence at work. So, over here at Create Magic at Work, we are not just a great podcast. We are an executive coaching firm, a team dedicated to helping leaders like you create healthier, more fulfilling workplaces. Whether it's through private coaching, transformative workshops, or impactful keynotes, we're here to help support your journey to have less drama and stress and more magical moments in your life. So have a little fun. Take our quick quiz in the show notes and see where you stand. Discover your spiritual intelligence at work. Click on the link in the show notes and reach out to us for support if you need it. Sending magic to you. Your recommendation, because that was actually my next question, was like, well, what is your advice for people that might be going through this, that are afraid of retaliation? And I'm hearing you loud and clear. Your recommendation is, well, one thing you said was the house always wins. The other thing you said is change your environment if you can, or just even if you feel like you can't change your environment. And what struck me when you were sharing that is we talk on Create Magic at Work all the time about spiritual intelligence, quantum leadership, how to be a wise and compassionate leader in the workplace. And my hope is that if we have enough people that are practicing and skill building in their SQ, their spiritual intelligence, how to put their ego aside, how to operate from their inner wisdom, their inner compassion, their inner love, I'm hoping these environments will decrease in the workplace. And when you say to someone listening, change your environment, what I'm hoping or what I envision is there is a place that you can go that is resonating from this higher scale of motivation, of a place of cooperation, giving back, wise and compassion. And that's also another way how we can eradicate these spaces is if we make a choice to choose to work for the wise and compassionate leader over choosing to work for the toxic workplace. And I say that with so much hope. And I say that with so much empowerment for everyone, because sometimes when you're in those spaces, you feel paralyzed and you feel like you don't have choice. And my hope is today that anybody listening feels that spark to look for the quantum company, look for the wise and compassionate leaders when you're changing your environment. I just wanted to add that on. We're already getting toward this was, oh my gosh, this time has
I can talk forever.
blown by. Crazy. So, but I really want to offer, I mean, just everything you've shared has been very sacred. So we appreciate you sharing this story and we honor it. Resources for those needing help. Can you offer before we, pull our message for everyone today? And I already have the chills. What are some resources for people needing help in this workplace abuse, workplace bullying topic?
Yeah, let me just say, Amy, I am with you. I am so excited about the possibility of us really doing something substantial to change laws that will better protect us. In the meantime, until we have that in place, it may take another year, it may take 2 or 3 years, I don't know. However long it takes us, in the meantime, I know there are people who are listening going, well, I'm in a toxic workplace, what can I do? And I think this is where the rubber needs to meet the road. Companies and abusers, they know that there's fear. They have instilled fear in all of us to remain quiet and silent and to just accept the behavior because our livelihoods are intrinsically tied to working. If I don't work, then I cannot afford my car note. If I don't work, I can't afford my mortgage and so on and so forth. And so because of that, that's the fear that people say, well, you know what? I can't say anything because they're going to retaliate. I'm going to lose my job, or they're going to fire me, or they're going to put me on a PIP. And we know the long story there. And so we need to get to the place where, as you mentioned, that we have the ability to not just speak truth to power, but to sit in intentionality and to do those intentional things, if you will, those intentional, have those intentional moments of conversation, being clear in all of our companies and workplaces that we have the capacity to change this. The capacity is within us. It's a choice that we make. We've made the choice that this is standard operating procedures for companies to enact retaliation and manipulation and gaslighting. Why? Because there are no laws to protect us. So if we can change the laws, that's number one. But in the meantime, we all need to have that desire to have the intentional conversations, to have the capacity for compassion, because I believe all of us do, to have the capacity to be courageous, to say, you know what, I see you, I see what's happening. And the culture that I want to create here is one of integrity and respect and value. And that is what will drive, I would say, more profit. So we have to really have those conversations to help businesses understand that. When you create a psychologically safe place for your employees, they will go to the end of the earth for you. And if your goal is to make money, which it is, guess what? You will have employees who come to work excited to work. They will have a better morale. They will go above and beyond. And that in turn will increase your profits. Everyone wants to work in a safe place. So we have to have the conversations and be willing to have the conversations and say, we need to take the intentional steps to make a change and to change our culture from the top all the way down. And when people don't align with those values, we have to be willing to say and have the courage to say, you're no longer welcomed here. Period. Zero tolerance. It's really as simple as that. It doesn't mean that you don't give people a chance, because I do believe in second, even third chances. But when it's clear that no one is willing to change, you have to make a hard stance and say, we're not going to accept this. And eventually, I believe, Amy, that the pendulum will change, that the standard becomes psychologically safe versus a chaotic place where there's bullying and manipulation and discrimination that's allowed to fester and to grow. So in terms of resources, I would say align yourself with the advocacy group End Workplace Abuse. We've been around for about 10 years. We are making some great strides in helping people to understand what your rights are, helping people to understand your rights in terms of being able to work in a safe place, having the conversations with legislators around the country about passing the Workplace Psychological Safety Act. But it gives you those resources for you, one, to understand that you're not alone, and two, to find places within your state and organizations to find mental therapy if you need that as well, because trauma is real, and to be aligned with like-minded people who have been through and are going through this. Because I do believe that where there's a village, we can do amazing things. And so what I have heard from people who are part of the Indiana group, as well as around the nation, they feel so much more empowered because they know they're not alone. And so the first step is to admit that you're in a toxic workplace, to decide, how do I leave if that's what I need to do? And it may not be immediate, but go ahead and begin to start planning your exit strategy. I had an exit strategy. So when I finally walked away and they said, well, we're going to pack your bags up and, your desk will send everything to you, there was nothing in there but pens and pencils. And I said, you don't have to pack anything up for me. So when they opened the drawer, I'm sure they realized, wow, not that I was planning it, but I knew at some point this was not going to be my last destination. So to begin having an exit strategy, begin to save money, begin to sock away as much as you can. When you understand what the abuse is, as you're going through it and they continue to think they're kind of getting over on you, you begin to understand what it is. And it kind of becomes a little comical, if you will, because you're like, wow, they really are trying hard to push me out. And they're really trying hard to, affect my mental and physical state. So all of those things combined, EWA, be part of a support group, find a therapist, plan your exit strategy, find another job in the meantime before you actually walk away. I would never recommend just walking away unless you have no other option. For me, I just walked away. I did not have a golden parachute. I did not have a second job. And because I've been so outspoken, the reality of being blackballed in the industry is real. I hear that from so many people in so many different industries who say, I can't find a job in my chosen field because my name has been run in the mud. We know that it happens. We know that it happens. I mean, the president of bullying recently said in a congressional hearing that they retaliated against so-called whistleblowers, people who just wanted to speak up and say the right thing because they wanted to work in a safe place and to make sure that consumers were safe. And so we have to have more conversations. We have to have people who are willing to be courageous enough to say, hey, this happened to me and I'm not going to tolerate it. And I'm going to be part of this organization or any organization to help us move the agenda so that we can create better workplaces for everyone. Abuse is abuse. If we have laws for environmental safety, if there are regulations to protect physical safety of people, there should be laws to protect our psychological safety as well. If there are crimes against sexual assault, as well as physical abuse, domestic violence, this is the same thing. This is abuse. We need to have a law to protect us as well. This is the foundation. So I just believe that the more you become actively engaged in trying to, what I say, heal your wounds, if you will, because it is a trauma and it will take a time. Over time, you will begin to become more resilient. You will begin to regain your power and you will begin to look at the trauma as really a gift because of that moment. It was horrendous, horrific. There's still days when I'm like, I can't believe that happened to me. But the tears are so few and far between now that it has now propelled me into another journey of my life and one that I believe really is now my true purpose. And because of that, I'm experiencing life in a whole new way, in a joyous way, in a spiritual way, in a way that I am seeking people and environments and collaborations with people who clearly are saying to themselves and to others through their actions that I want to be about the business of living in a holistic environment, collaborating with people who are well emotionally. And because of that, that is what continues to push me to feel good about myself and to feel good about thriving, feel good about how I navigate and walk through the world with my family and my friends. And so for the first time in my life, I'm enjoying life in a way that I always knew was available, but didn't know how to obtain it, did not know how to obtain it. And here we are. And it's the best thing that's ever happened to me. So yeah, I just say, hey, if it's happening to you, I'm praying for you. I pray that you are able to, harness the strength and the courage to do something about it because you deserve it. You deserve joy in life and to thrive in life. Thriving in life is our birthright. It's our birthright.
Oh, okay. So thank you for your courage and your vulnerability and for your support for everyone today. We're going to put all of those resources and support links in the show notes. So if anyone is listening, don't forget to always check out the show notes. There's really great links in there that you can access for help and really great. I'm going to pull a journal prompt card for us. I'm closing my eyes, see what message we get for today.
I love it. I'm excited.
So this message is for everyone listening and for you and I both. Oh, wow. Okay. Well, universe gave us motivation,
Yeah.
which is interesting. And the affirmation is, I stay mentally strong. Listen to this affirmation, Andrea. I stay mentally strong when faced with adversity, knowing that success is the only possible outcome.
Oh, that just gave me shivers.
I know, right? Totally. Yeah. Hope. I stay mentally strong when faced with adversity, knowing that success is the only possible outcome.
That is so rich.
I think that is a great way to end this conversation. Andrea, I'm going to ask you an advice question on the fly that's on the card for everyone. What is one courageous thing they can do right now to help eradicate workplace bullying and workplace abuse? What is one courageous thing we can do, even a micro step that will help us end this?
The first micro step is to speak your truth, to admit it to yourself that you are in an abusive relationship. And from there, the journey begins. But it all begins with speaking your truth and admitting to yourself, I am in an abusive relationship and I deserve better. That is the hope and the faith that you just talked about. And when you realize that and you admit it to yourself and you speak it, you have to say it out loud, whether it's verbally or in a journal. But when you speak it, you are taking your power back. It no longer has power over you. And when you regain that power, it walks with you every step of the way towards healing and to thriving and having a joyful and a peaceful life.
Love it. Andrea, thank you so much for being a guest today. Thank you for shining a light on this topic. And thank you for sending some magic to everyone with your story, your courage, and your vulnerability.
It's my honor. Thank you so very much. And I'm praying for anyone who is experiencing this, that you will reclaim your joy because it's your birthright.
Thank you. Yes, I think that's an amazing, magical intention to send to everyone today is we intend for everyone to reclaim their joy.
Amen.
I want to thank each and every one of you for coming back every week to listen to a new episode of Create Magic at Work and really helping to support and advocate for healthy leaders, workplaces, and lives for all of us. If you want any information on how to connect with me, click on the link in the show notes. You'll get access to all of the social media links for Create Magic at Work. Stay following along for more amazing episodes where we help you improve productivity and profitability in the workplace and decrease stress. Sending magic to everyone, and see you next time.